Too well she loved to speak a faithful word and lay her burden on his happy head. She pressed the outsurging grief back into her breast to dwell within, silent, unhelped, alone. Too well she loved that she would not like her burden to be put on his head. Was that only the burden of Savitri? Was that also not the burden of Satyavan? And lay her burden on his happy head. Satyavan has absolutely no idea about his death, which is approaching pretty fast. And all the grief, all the sorrow is in the heart of Savitri. She has taken the entire burden upon herself. It is the love's burden which she has housed in her own soul. That is the burden of her soul. And it is she alone who can disburden herself. There was no point at all of passing on that burden to Satyavan. In fact, that cannot be passed on to him. Because Savitri is carrying on that burden in her soul, she has to prepare herself yogically to see that it is removed. Too well she loved to speak a faithful word and lay her burden on his happy head. But Satyavan sometimes half understood from her movements, from her gestures, from the kind of anguish that would come up on her face, even perhaps by some kind of a casual comment or remark or word uttered by Savitri, he might understand a bit of her sorrow and suffering, get an idea of the burden she was holding in her breast. But Satyavan sometimes half understood or felt at least with the uncertain answer of our thought-blinded hearts, the unuttered need, the unplumbed abyss of our deep, passionate want. He saw mostly Savitri's passion for him, and in the thought-blinded heart, he could feel that there was something going on within her, and he wanted to respond to her. And therefore, wherever he went, whatever he was doing, he was carrying the figure of Savitri in his mind, in his heart. All of his speeding days, Dakut spare from labor in the forest, doing wood, and hunting food in the sylvan glades, and service to his father's sightless life, he gave to her and helped to to increase the hours by the nearness of his presence and his class, and lavish softness of heart seeking words, and a close beating felt of heart on heart. Well, that is how the young couple will respond to each other. He gave to her and helped to increase the hours by the nearness of his presence. Whenever he was not attending to his other duties, whenever he was close to her, by the nearness of his presence and his class, and lavish softness of heart-seeking words, and a close beating felt of heart on heart. He would speak sweet things, lovely things, things of love, of joy, of togetherness, and try to comfort, so to say, Savitri, that he was not in a position to give full of her love to her, as he had to attend his daily routines. He had to go to the forest, cut wood, collect food, collect flowers for the yajna, for the daily worship. He was attending all those things, but whenever I was free and not attending to the duties towards his blind father, he would give as much time as possible to Savitri, and lavish softness of heart-seeking words, and a close beating felt of heart on heart. All was too little for her bottomless need. Savitri's need was insatiable. It could not be easily satisfied. Her grief came from the deeps of grief, and it could not be easily assuaged. All was too little for her bottomless need. If in his presence she forgot a while, grief filled his absence with its aching touch. She saw the desert of her coming days. Imaged in every solitary hour, she saw the desert of her coming days, the wasteland of life, the sandy stretches without flower and bird and tree. That would be her life when he would be no more. She saw that desert. Desert is a place where the things, objects, cannot cast their shadow. The shadows, even the hot sun, at the noon time also, bright sun, the objects cannot cast their shadow because the shadows melt away in the desert land. They do not exist there. It is in that condition Savitri saw that even the shadow of her joy with Satyavan would not exist. It will be a total wasteland of life stretching in front of her. If in his presence she forgot a while, grief filled his absence with its aching touch. She saw the desert of her coming days. Imaged in every solitary hour, whenever he will be away from her, in a solitary hour, what was she seeing? waste of life, stretches of sand, refractory existence, without fruit and flower and leaf and tree. That would be the future for her. And she was worried also about that. Is she going to accept it? Is she going to somehow disown it? Is there any way for her to get out of it? She has been contemplating all the alternatives, all the possibilities. And one possibility which crosses her mind, her thoughts, her feelings, even perhaps her will, is the possibility of going away with Satyavan when he dies. The possibility of going along with him as Sati, so that there is no more that desert stretching in front of her. She would accompany him in life as much as in death by throwing herself on the burning fire when he would die. If in his presence she forgot a while, grief filled his absence with its aching touch. She saw the desert of her coming days, imaged in every solitary hour, although with a vague imaginary bliss, a fiery union through death's door of escape. She dreamed of her body robed in funeral flame. She knew she must not clutch that happiness. She was ready to go with Sati along with Satyavan. She was ready for that. Of union through death's door of escape. She dreamed of her body robed in funeral flame. She would put on the attire of the Sati and enter into his fire and vanish or disappear or accompany him even in death. But although with a vague imaginary bliss, but accompanying him through this process of Sati would be a vain imaginary bliss. It is vain because it is imaginary bliss. Savitri is imagining that she could accompany Satyavan in this manner and be always together with him. What is the certainty that it might happen? Is there a kind of an inevitability of them remaining together if she follows that course of action? Perhaps that is her imagination. But if it is an imagination, then obviously it is vain. There is no point then in taking that course of action, of entering the funeral pyre when she is living. There is no certainty. It could be a vain imaginary bliss. Although the vain imaginary bliss of fiery union through death's door of escape, she dreamed of her body robed in funeral flame. She knew she must not clutch that happiness. She was imagining, but her conviction, her deep soul tells her, no, Savitri, that is not the way you are going to go along with him. That is not your way at all. You have come here for something else. Not to go like Sati as any other pious holy woman would do. It is not for that purpose that you will disappear. Now, this is a very deep thought. It is not just a thought also. There is a deep occult content in this, in the wife going as Sati with her dead husband. There is some occult content in it. It has a meaning, it has a purpose, it has something which is marvelous also. But Savitri is not going to accept that line of action. She knew she must not clutch that happiness. Now the story of Sati is an ancient story. It is of course narrated in the Puranas, but it must have been present in its true significant way even during the Vedic times. Even the legend of Savitri belongs to the Vedic cycle, and if Shravandu, the yogi, is referring to the aspect of Sati, it also means that it has the Vedic validity, Vedic support, Vedic adhara, Vedic content in it. Should Savitri therefore follow the Vedic path, not the social, the traditional, not the recent degradation of Sati type, but in its true content? Should she follow the Vedic path and go as Sati with her husband? Let us go back to the passage which we have already dealt with, what we had called the Vishnu-Lakshmi relationship between Satyavan and Savitri. The traditional Puranic depiction of the scene is Vishnu is stretched on his couch, golden couch of the serpent, and Lakshmi is sitting at his feet. That is the image which we have got about Vishnu and Lakshmi. The same thing in a different manner, with a different kind of richness, is what we have about Satyavan and Savitri. That was the love between God and Goddess. Here is the love between two human beings, both incarnate powers, personalities, but having taken the human form. Savitri is facing the moment of Satyavan's death, and she is going through a difficult psychological state. We have already seen that thing, but let us read that particular passage again. All night she woke to the slow, silent hours, brooding on the treasure of his bosom and face, hung o'er the sleep-bound beauty of his brow, or laid a burning cheek upon his feet. Laid her a burning cheek upon his feet. Waking at morn, her lips endlessly clung to his, unwilling ever to separate again, or lose that honeyed drain of lingering joy, unwilling to lose his body from her breast. The warm, inadequate signs that love must use. The warm, inadequate signs of the human lover and beloved. This is what we are here. As I said earlier, this is not at all an erotic picture. It is not even of the kind of Kalidasian Shringara. It is a true psychic relationship in the human form between them two. Now this description, hung o'er the sleep-bound beauty of his brow, or laid a burning cheek upon his feet, the warm, inadequate signs that love must use. We have, at a number of places in Savitri, something which brings out this aspect at various stages of Savitri's, you might say, young life. Maybe we could look into those things again, but basically the point is, throughout Savitri, there is the oneness of this particular description, and that is most fascinating. Shravandu had written the book of Yoga almost towards the end of his presence here, physical presence here. It is not something which one would have seen in his poetry of the Baroda type. In the Baroda period, we have Urvasi, Love and Death, Vasavadutta, where there is abundance of sensuous love and sensuous passion and sensuous beauty and Shringara, all the sensuous. That is not the case here in Savitri. Here we have got a full Siddha Yogi describing this relationship at a different level altogether. And that is what is present in Savitri. Most of the Savitri, the final version of Savitri, the seal which he has put on Savitri belongs to the last 8 or 10 years of his stay here. Savitri, we can say, essentially belongs to the period 1940 to 1950, where the full yogic power of the yogi is in operation in every dynamics, even in the literary field here. And there cannot be anything in that sense vital, sensuous, emotional, passionate, erotic. It is not that element at all which we have to see here. In fact, one would wonder if this relationship is normally not allowed for the spiritual aspirants, for the sadhaks, for the spiritual disciples, then how is it that he is describing it here? What happens to Savitri's yoga if she is kind of engaged in this relationship? Are they compatible with the yogic discipline that is demanded of the aspiring soul? Trying to realize the spiritual values, spiritual truth, spiritual aspects in life. Is that valid here? That is one of the basic questions here. But it is also dismissed immediately on the basis that this description is at a different level of relationship altogether. And that is what is present in other passages of Savitri also. Maybe we can see those passages in some detail and get a clearer, broader idea about the whole thing. We have the meeting of Satyavan and Savitri in the Book of Love. And they have recognized each other's identity. They at once knew who they are and why they had come together, how the God of love had touched them in time that the meeting does take place. When they have recognized their identity, when they have decided to be together in life, then we have the description of what we might call the marriage between Satyavan and Savitri, the marriage of the Lord and the spouse being performed again here on earth. Let us read some of those things again quickly. Savitri fell under the Satyavan, under the spell of Satyavan, and her soul has become very joyous. And the entire beauty of her soul is now seen in the eyes, and therefore the poet takes a very beautiful aspect of the relationship by saying that allured to her lashes by his passionate words, her fathomless soul looked at him from her eyes. The soul is seated deep within, but we see the beauty of her eyes and gets attracted by the beauty of the eye and comes out, allured to her lashes by his passionate words. Her fathomless soul looked at him from her eyes, passing her lips in liquid sounds. It so. O Satyavan, I heard thee, and I know that thou and only thou art he. She has offered herself totally to Satyavan. She gets down from her chariot, from her golden carved chariot. Haimartham, as Vyasa would say. Then down she came from her high carbon car, descending with a soft and faltering haste. Her many-hued remained glistening in the light, hovered a moment over the wind-stirred glass, mixed with the glimmer of her body's ring, like lovely plumage of a settling bird. She gets down from the chariot, picks up the flowers from the forest, and makes a rapid garland, and then a candid garland set with simple forms. Her rapid fingers taught a flower song, the stanzas moment of a marriage hymn. A sacrament of joy in treasuring palms, she brought flower symbol of her offered life, then with raised hands that trembled a little now at the very closeness that her soul desired. This boundless sweetness, their bright union sign, she laid on the bosom coveted by her love. She put the garland around Satyavan's neck. And Satyavan, he bent to her and took into his own their married yearning joined like folded hopes, as if the whole rich world suddenly possessed wedded to it, to all he had been became himself, and inexhaustible joy made his alone. He gathered all Savitri into his clasp. Each now was a part of the other's unity. They were two, but they have become now inseparably one. On the high growing picola of the day, fate tied a knot with morning's halo threads. In a new act of the drama of the world, the united two began a greater age. In the silence and murmur of that emerald world, and the mutter of the priest-winds, the sacred words, and the choral whisperings of the leaves, love's twain had joined together and grew one. The natural miracle was wrought once more. In the immutable ideal world, one human moment was eternal made. And then finally Savitri says, yes, this is the place where I will stay. I will be happy to be in here. For soon I shall return, nor ever again. Oneness must, Saviour, is recovered the bliss. Our fate shudder our lives while life is ours. Oneness must, Saviour, is recovered bliss. They have been together always, life after life. They have come here again and they are simply recovering that oneness once more. We have again an intimate relationship of Satyavan and Savitri, very poetically, very sweetly, very touchingly described in the Book of Death. Death in the forest. Savitri is accompanying Satyavan to the forest, and soon the god of death will arrive on the scene and snatch away the soul of her husband. But here Satyavan says, he recognizes something very great and very beautiful in Savitri, and he tells her, I hold thee for a strong goddess who has come pitying our barren days. So dost thou serve even as a slave might. This is what Savitri was doing in the hermitage. So dost thou serve even as a slave might, yet art thou beyond all that thou doest. Like the strong sun that serves earth from above, so is the strong sun serving the creatures down below here. I hold thee for a strong goddess who has come. Now this is the relationship between Satyavan and Savitri. It is not passionate, vital, human relationship at all. Then again, and he is about to die, he is soliciting Savitri, please lean down, O soul, my soul, lean down, Savitri, Savitri, O Savitri, lean down and kiss me while I die. And then what happened? And even as her pallid lips pressed his face, because Satyavan was not there now, he could not respond. His face, losing the last sweetness of response, his cheek pressed down her golden arm. She sought his mouth, still with a living mouth, as if she could persuade his soul back with her kiss. Then grew aware they were no more alone. God of death has already arrived on the scene. Yama is standing in front of them, in front of her. So this is again a similar kind of description we have seen earlier. Then, after winning the victory over death, conquering Yama, in his own kingdom, Satyavan and Savitri see each other in the living human form. And he is amazed about what had happened, where he had gone, where his spirit had travelled, and how Savitri was following all along. Satyavan's soul has come back, and Savitri, she recognizes it immediately, of course. She pressed the living body of Satyavan. On her body's wordless joy to be and breathe, she bore the blissful burden of his head. Between her breasts, warm labour of delight. The waking gladness of her members felt the weight of heaven in his limbs. A touch summing the whole felicity of things, and all her life was conscious of his life. That is the oneness. All her life was conscious of his life, and all her being rejoiced, enfolding his. When Satyavan's soul comes back, this is what happens. And then again further down, we have Satyavan was wondering how they had travelled together and what had happened and all that. And he is demanding of Savitri, please let me know what miracle you had done, where were you, how you had won me back. But she replied, our parting was a dream. We are together. We live, O Satyavan. Only our souls had left death's night behind. We have been always together, but now death's night has been left behind. Only our souls have left death's night behind, changed by mighty dreams reality, illumined by the light of simple worlds and stupendous summer self of things, and stood at Goddess' gaze, limitless, free. Let's see some more passages, a couple of passages. Savitri tells Satyavan, yes, this is the thing. We come back. She clasped his feet by her enshrining hair. Now, this is again a very powerful description. Heavenly Queen, that is Savitri, consenting to his will, she clasped his feet by her enshrining hair, enveloped in a velvet cloak of love, and answered softly like a murmuring lute, all now is changed, yet all is still the same. Lo, we have looked upon the face of God, our life has opened with divinity. We have borne identity with the Supreme and known His meaning in our mortal lives. Our love has grown greater by that mighty touch and learned its heavenly significance. This is what the death of Satyavan has gifted to her. Learned its heavenly significance. The true significance of love is what she has learned in the sequel of Satyavan's death. Heaven's touch fulfills and learned his heavenly significance, yet nothing is lost of mortal love's delight. We have taken human shape, and that human relationship continues. Nothing is lost in that relationship. Our love has grown greater by that mighty touch and learned, in other words, it has grown greater. It has come down even in the mortal relationship, which was not there earlier, that heavenly love, by the touch of the Supreme, has now entered into the mortal relationship also. And learned its heavenly significance, yet nothing is lost of mortal love's delight. Heaven's touch fulfills, but cancels not our earth. That is the greatness of Satyavan's death. What has it achieved? Yes, heaven's love is great, heaven's qualities are great, heaven's powers, beauty, joy, love, knowledge, whatever you want to call it, they are great. But they remain great only over there. Satyavan's death now has made it possible that all those greatnesses can enter into the mortal world. Heaven's touch fulfills but cancels not our earth. Our bodies need each other in the same lust. Our bodies need each other in the same lust. Still in our breast repeat heavenly secret rhythm. Our human heart beats passionately close. So the mortality is fulfilled in its true sense in the death of Satyavan and is coming back again to the mortal world. And learn its heavenly significance. Heaven's touch fulfills but cancels not our earth. Our bodies need each other in the same lust, in the same mold, in the same shape in which things are formed. Our bodies have an identical shape now. It is the shape which is now made in the mold of heaven. Our bodies are in the same lust now. Until now, in the mortal world, there were differences. From the same elements of the supramental substance, these bodies have been formed, and it is that same lust which has now made them one again in a greater, in a more beautiful, in a marvelous way. In the same lust they have been fulfilled in the earth. It is the Super Sankhya or the transcendent which has formed this new body of Satyavan and Savitri. That new mold, new body, that new formation is what has come as a gift from the God of death transformed into the Supreme Lord. In fact, when Savitri was asked by the rishis and all that, what had happened and how this has happened, she replies, Savitri tells, for not for ourselves alone, our spirits came. It is not only for Satyavan Savitri has come, and for Savitri Satyavan has come. Not for ourselves alone, our spirits came. Out of the veil of the unmanifest, out of the deep, immense, unknowable, on the ignorant breast of dubious earth, into the ways of laboring, seeking men, two fires that burn to that parent sun, two rays that travel to the original light, two fires that burn toward the parent sun. It is for that purpose they have come, Satyavan and Savitri. And that is the fulfillment of their presence here, their work here, their yoga, their tapasya, their mission's accomplishment. This is what they have been doing through the ages, and now this has been achieved. Yet the human is there. For not for ourselves alone, our spirits feel. That is the crucial thing. To lead man's soul towards truth and God, we are born. To draw the checkered scheme of mortal life into some semblance of the immortal's plan, to shape it closer to an image of God, a little nearer to the idea divine. It is for that purpose we have come. So for a while they stood entwined in the forest, Satyavan and Savitri. So for a while they stood entwined, their kiss and passion-tranced embrace, a meeting point in their commingling spirits, one forever, two-souled, two-bodied, for the joys of time. So they have come to enjoy in time as two individuals, two parts. Then, hand in hand, they left the solemn place, solemn because death had occurred there. Because it is there she won victory over death. Because it is there that the Supreme Lord gave her beautiful boons. The grandest, the most beautiful boon of Krishna and Kali following their return to the earth. Then hand in hand they left that solemn place, full now of mute, unusual memories, to the great distance of the sylvan home, returning slowly to the forest heart. And then finally, Savitri asserts, she was asked by a great tapasvi, by a great rishi, who could be in the Mahabharata story of Vyasa, Rishi Gautama. Rishi Gautama asked Savitri, please let us know what actually happened at the midday in the forest. Something very deep, something luminous, something occult surely took place over there. We have no idea of it. And you are the one who can really tell us all the details. And Savitri replies, awakened to the meaning of my heart, that to feel love and oneness is to live, to feel love and oneness with everyone is to live, and this, the magic of our golden change, is all the truth I know or seek. O sage, O woman soul, Gautama was asking Savitri, O woman soul, what light, what power revealed, working the rapid marvels of this day, opens for us by thee a happier age. It is because of Savitri that a happier age has opened. And what is the magic? What is the cause behind this? And Savitri says, to feel love and oneness is to live. It is that magic key by which this new door has opened. And it is in that love we see the completeness of the love of Satyavan and Savitri. If in his presence She forgot a while. Grief filled his absence with its aching touch. She saw the desert of her coming days, imaged in every solitary hour. She saw the desert of her coming days. Although with the vain imaginary bliss of fiery union to death door of escape, she dreamed of her body robed in funeral flame. She knew she must not clutch that happiness, to die within and follow, seizing his robe across our other countries, travelers glad into the sweet or terrible beyond. For those sad parents still would need her here to hold the empty remnant of their day. Savitri is facing a tough situation. She is weighing all the possibilities that lie ahead of her in future. She is at a dead end of the road. She does not know where to go, what to do, what is going to happen tomorrow. While she was in the company of Satyavan, she was of course very happy, but his absence filled her heart and body and her soul. It became unbearable also. When he will be no more at all, she does not know what she is going to do, what will be her plight. If while leaving his absence, when he has gone to the forest for his daily work, she would constantly remember him and with the aching touch lived a grieving life. She would not know what will happen to her after his death. That is the deadlock, that is the block, that is the dead end of her life she is seeing in front of her. It is a desert life, it is a wasteland, a desert which under the hot sun will even dissolve the shadow of a person. It is under that circumstance, under those conditions, Savitri is psychologically unsettled. So, one of the possibilities she is being in her thought, in her feelings, even possibly in her action, is to go as Sati along with Satyavan's body when it is put on the burning pyre. Although with a vain imaginary bliss, but that itself is an imagination, and the bliss of accompanying him therefore is vain. Although with a vain imaginary bliss of fiery union to death's door of escape, she dreamed of her body robed in funeral flame. She knew she must not clutch that happiness. No, that is not the way for me. Although she imagined that as a possibility of going Satyavan, that is not my way. I cannot adopt on that path. I cannot go as Sati. Why? Dharma came and follow, seizing his robe across our other countries, travelers glad into the sweet or terrible beyond. She would not like to be one who take that journey. Why? Because those sad parents, Satyavan's father and mother, old parents, for those sad parents, still would need her here. Who take care of those poor souls? Her father-in-law is blind, he cannot move around. Her mother-in-law is pale and frail, she cannot do ordinary common household things at all. Who is going to attend to them if she goes away as Sati? Is that a good option for her? That is what she is thinking of. But then she says, those sad parents still would need her here to help the empty remnant of their day. For whatever short duration they might be living after that, they would need some physical help, some support, somebody to take care of them every day. So here, Savitri is on that basis that her parents-in-law would need her help. She is rejecting the idea of going as Sati. No, I cannot abandon this world and go as Sati. What will happen to the old people? Blind father-in-law, frail mother-in-law. What will happen to them in my absence? And therefore, she says that, no, I cannot go wearing the robe of a Sati and plunging on the fire of his body. She cannot go that. Now there are a few important considerations here. First is the idea of going as Sati. Savitri is of course dismissing it because her parents-in-law would need her help. So the idea of going as Sati, she is keeping aside, she is dismissing it. But at the same time, there is the ideal behind the Satihood. There is some truth, there is some merit, there is some value, some occult relationship between the two, by which the fulfillment, by going as Sati, the fulfillment of which is achieved. So there is the ideal behind the act of going as Sati. The idea of going as Sati no more now exists in the mind of Savitri. But the fact that the poet, the yogi, the social thinker is bringing this concept here in the description, it also means that it is a value. It is not there for nothing. Sati cannot be dismissed. There might have been degradation. The tradition might have got degraded in the course of time, but the ideal of Sati is very pure, very flaming, very bright, very acceptable in a deeper occult sense, and that cannot be dismissed. In fact, had it not been so, had there not been any meaning in the ideal of Sati, Sri Aurobindo would not have introduced this idea at all in the poem. He values it, and therefore he is introducing that idea in the mind of Savitri. The ideal is perfect, has a truth in it, and it has to be weighed in its proper sense. Now, what is sati? Well, the physical act is the wife throws herself into the flames of the burning body of her husband. She is fearless, she has made a determination, she weighs no pros and cons. For her, there is a complete identification with her Lord, and she plunges into the flame of the burning body. That is the act of sati. Well, the deeper meaning is, the word sati itself is very weighty, has deep significance in it. Sati is a feminine of sat, or truth. One who gives himself totally to the truth in every respect, in his body, in his thoughts, in his mind, in his emotions, in his feelings, in his actions, in every respect, who commits himself to truth, he is sati. Sati is not an ideal only for women, although the word sati is basically a feminine word. So, it is giving one's life, one's entire existence in every respect to the truth of life. That is what sati means. And Savitri sees even in this act a oneness of her soul with the soul of her husband, of Satyavan. See, Satyavan, Sati, they are really interrelated. The Sanskrit language is rich in its roots and connections. Satyavan, Savitri going as Sati, they are therefore interrelated. They are not dissimilar, indifferent at all. Savitri must go as Sati. The question is whether she go as Sati by burning her body or by an occult action. These are perhaps two different things. Here, Savitri is still a human Savitri, and therefore for her, burning her body is immediate connotation. Psychologically, she will definitely sacrifice everything of hers in an occult way and give everything of hers to her husband, Satyavan. Her being, her will, her action, her idea, her thought, her knowledge, everything will get purified in that flame. There is no doubt about it. But here she has to perform a physical act, and Savitri is keeping it aside. She is ruling out that option totally. That is an important thing. Why? Because sad old parents will still need her. She is required for that purpose. Well, again, a question might arise: is love for her husband less than her love for her parents-in-law? She is considering her commitment towards the parents-in-law more important than towards her husband. Is that the way Savitri would look at things? That is the question. For her, definitely Satyavan is more important. And parents-in-law, the whole world, the entire creation around, would not have any value to her at all, strictly speaking, you see. But still she says here, look, these parents need me. Now it is not for the sake of these parents alone in that sense that Savitri is dismissing the idea of going as sati. She also knows that her husband loved these parents very much, very well. In that sense, serving them is fulfilling the unfulfilled desire of her husband himself, of Satyavan. Satyavan loves his parents, so Savitri is in a certain sense committed to love them because of him and not necessarily because of themselves. That is the thing behind it, you see. And that could be really one way of looking at this idea of her keeping aside the act of sati. But there are still more important considerations. If Savitri goes as sati, it would mean again that the mission of her life for which she had taken this birth would remain unfulfilled. How can that be? That is there deep in her soul. How can I abandon this world? It is not for the sake of just love of her parents-in-law to serve them, not just for the sake of fulfilling the tradition of going as sati. She has a work to do here. She was born here. She was compelled to take a mortal birth for a certain purpose. What happens to that purpose? Can she therefore accept death and go away like that? That would mean the defeat. That would mean the divine intention by which she had taken birth is kept aside. The divine sanction is there. Savitri, you must go there. You must conquer death. You cannot follow death. You have to conquer death. And it is that consideration which overweighs in her mind, in her soul, in her thoughts, even in her emotions. Although she is charged with love for her husband and for all that her husband loves, including his parents, all that. Those sad parents still would need her here to help the empty remnant of their day, not for their own sake, perhaps so much, but for the sake of Satyavan. He would wish her, Savitri, please stay back and attend to my parents. To fulfill that wish, he would rule out the possibility of going as sati. There is no doubt about that. Now, Savitri is talking here about her parents-in-law, that they will need her. there is another way of looking at it. It is not only just a question of those old people, but it is also the question of the oneness Savitri has with this entire creation. It is in that oneness that she accepts and does whatever has to be done. That is the important consideration here. Now we have at every place in Savitri, wherever this question arises, the question of oneness. Savitri is facing the Supreme Lord Himself in the transcendent. Satyavan has died. She follows Yama. She defeats Yama. Behind him, she sees the transcendental Purusha. Yama transferred into the transcendental Purusha. He offers her boon after boon to Savitri. The Supreme Purusha offers her boon after boon. He offers her 4 boons. And one of the boons is very distinct. First he offers her, accept, O music, very nice of thy notes, O stream, wide breaking of thy channel banks. And Savitri replies, thy peace, O Lord, a boon within to keep amid the roar and ruin of wild time, for the magnificent soul of man and earth. Her boon, her asking for the boon, her receiving the boon is for whom? For the magnificent soul of man and earth. She does not want anything for herself at all. Again, second time, Savitri says, thy oneness, Lord, in many approaching hearts, my sweet infinity of thy numberless souls, for man and on earth. Then for oneness with the entire creation here. And then Savitri says, thy energy, Lord, to seize on woman and man, to take all things and creatures in their grief and gather them into a mother's arm. That is what I want your energy for. That the grief of man and woman is removed from this creation. Thy energy, Lord, to seize on woman and man, to take all things and creatures in the grief and gather them into a mother's arms. And finally, she says, thy embrace, which rend the living knot of pain. I want your embrace for what? To remove this pain. Thy embrace, which rend the living knot of pain. Thy joy, O Lord, in which all creatures breathe. Thy magic flowing waters of deep love. Thy sweetness give to me for earth and men. She is insistent upon that. She does not want anything for herself. Whatever she wants, even from the Supreme, is not for herself, not even for Satyavan, but for earth and men. That is her demand. And therefore when she says, those sad parents still would need her here to help the empty remnants of their day. It is for earth and men. This is a metaphorical way of putting this entire creation, earth and men, in terms of those sad parents. Sad parents symbolize, indicate, personify, so to say, this entire creation, this mortal creation, men and earth. And it is for them, whatever she wants, it is for them she wants. Therefore, it is because of that she throws away the idea of going as sati. Savitri would not go as sati for that particular reason. It is for this creation. That is an admission. That is the purpose for which she had taken this birth. And how can she go away from this creation? Now, it is in that context we have to see the meaning of sati and understand its implications. As I said earlier, the idea of sati is very ancient. It is present even in the Vedas, certainly present in the Puranas, present in the Mahabharata, present even in the Ramayana, the idea of sati. See, in the Ramayana, Indrajit, the son of Ravana, when he was killed by Lakshman, then his wife Sulochana went as sati. That was the oneness. There was something great even in those asuras. She went as sati, Indrajit's wife. In Mahabharata, we of course had the famous story of Pandu and Madri. When Pandu, the father of the Pandavas, he died, it is Madri who went as sati. Pandu had two wives, Kunti and Madri. Madri went as sati. Kunti stayed back to take care of her children, 5 Pandavas, who were received by her as gifts from 5 gods. So, the heavenly powers had taken a human birth in the form of Pandavas, and those gods, assuming the human birth, had to fight against the Asuric forces which were raging in the world at the time. So the Mahabharata war is actually the war between the right and the wrong, and the right could triumph because the gods themselves had taken the human birth. And of course, more importantly, the Lord himself, Krishna himself, was on their side. Madri had gone as sati. So there is a deeper tradition of sati. Had that not been the meaning and content of sati, Sripadu would not have introduced this idea of sati in the epic at this particular stage. As I said earlier, the tale of Savitri, or rather Satyavan and Savitri, is a Vedic tale. And if the tale has that Vedic significance, it is sort of natural that that is also incorporated in the epic Savitri. by the yogis here, because it has a true content in it. Savitri is dismissing here the idea of going as sati because she has a work to do. The oneness with this creation is what will hold her back to this creation. She would not go away from this creation for that particular reason. Madhuri could go, Sulochana could go, others could go for various reasons. But Savitri cannot go. It will be a failure of her taking a birth here.